Thanks for inviting me here. My name is Brian Wee from the National Ecological Observatory Network, or NEON. I am the corporation's congressional and federal agency liaison, and as it so happens, you know, the whole thing with timing, I just had to duck out to take a call from the U.S. Senate subcommittee inquiring about finances. Yeah, so that's the crowd that I deal with.
BrownDog can't help you with that.
That's a charge to you guys. So without further ado, I'm going to dive straight into NEON. NEON is a weird, complicated creature. It takes too long, even at 15 minutes, to explain. So I'm going to dive straight in and give you kind of the lowdowns in a few minutes, 5 minutes. So this is what you're looking at is the NEON site constellation, the suite of 60, that's 60 sites throughout the U.S. that collect environmental data in a consistent manner all throughout the continent, and that includes Alaska, Hawaii, and Puerto Rico. So we're talking about on the order of 500 measurements, distinct measurements at each of these 60 locations. Now, 500 measurements, you might think, like, wow, that's a big number. But so what it comprises is, you know, if we take, for example, you will see in the next picture, this is an artist's rendition of a typical site. And we will take, for example, here where the cursor is showing, we will take measurements at a number of heights up these meteorological towers. And so there will be, for example, an air temperature reading here, an air temperature reading here, and an air temperature reading here. These are considered 3 distinct measurements. And so if you add up and you count up all the different measurements, it comes up to about 500 measurements per site. Now, not all the measurements are abiotic. You know, so if you look at the world in terms of abiotic versus biotic measurements, the abiotic measurements are things like temperature, humidity, precipitation, incoming radiation, reflected radiation, yada, yada, yada. We also collect a whole bunch of biological measurements, things like soil microbes, aquatic invertebrates. We also assess the plant biodiversity in every site, the plant biomass that falls onto the earth and decays, the plant biomass that, of course, lives in the trees, exists as tree biomass, plant biomass. And so there's a huge suite of measurements, and if you again count them up, 500. But the 500 measurements includes the airborne measurements that we take. Now, so you heard yesterday the CZO, the Critical Zone Observatory talk, where there were LiDAR measurements and also hyperspectral measurements, I believe, conducted at the CZO site. So the same thing happens at our sites. We image our sites every year with an airborne instrument that comprises a LiDAR, a hyperspectral scanner, which is manufactured for us by JPL, and also a high-res photography unit. So there are 3 instruments on board that aircraft that images our site. And so the whole idea is, going back one slide, the whole idea behind NEON is to collect these measurements in a consistent manner such that you can scale up the measurements from the site to the regional scale, which is scanned by the aircraft. The aircraft acquires the data at the regional scale, more or less 400 square kilometers around each site. And then eventually the idea is to scale that kind of data up to the continent. So NEON is about scaling. It's about geographical scaling, but it's also about temporal scaling. The observatory is designed to run for 30 years. That's 30. We're in the middle of construction. Construction should be over by 2017. And upon commissioning of the observatory in 2017, we will operate for 30 years. And so here's where I quickly will jump into the potential BrownDog applications. Now, the NEON needs can be looked at in terms of 2 different needs. The internal needs of NEON that we at NEON HQ, about 400 staff members in Boulder, that comprises the NEON crew. We are very, very engineering driven. So the one ring that rules them all at NEON HQ is actually the engineers. Our systems engineers rules them all. So we are very engineering focused. We are very schedule focused. We are very budget focused, which is why one of the dictums in any solutions that we adopt is that it needs to be production ready, and sometimes it's mostly commercial off the shelf when available. And so the other part where BrownDog can inject itself actually is with our external community, and let me jump into that in a little while. So for internal needs, this is need number 1. we have these things called soil mini rhizotrons, which are cameras that go into the soil, that peek out into the soil. They peek out through a hollow, a transparent cylinder and take images of the roots. And this is important because one of the estimates of biomass is actually underground biomass. How much carbon is being sequestered as roots underground? That is not a well-studied process, and we will be collecting this data consistently throughout the sites, which is kind of a new thing. And the image processing requirements here, of course, are tricky. We have a solution. It's again COTS, but we're looking for alternate ways to more effectively handle that solution. The second use case where BrownDog can inject itself, again, is image processing. We have these hemispherical photos to assess leaf area indexes of the canopy, because our aircraft will be flying over this canopy, but we also want to ascertain the accurateness of the aircraft estimates from below ground. And so we take photos facing up and facing down. Facing down, we would like to ascertain the amount of ground cover that is can be attributable to vegetation. Again, potential use case 3, this is an external and internal need. Like I said, we have LiDAR, we have these airborne sensors, and again, I don't want to go into too much here because our needs here are concurrent with what the CZO needs there that were presented yesterday. So this is the last slide. The potential use case 4 is focusing on the external NEON community, meaning that you guys, don't care about what we're doing in NEON Boulder. The 400 of us, the 400 of us were ruled by engineers. Instead, you focus on the external users. Now, this is where our data, I think this is where the BrownDog applications and advances could have the most impact, because our data, the NEON data, cannot, for the most part, survive alone. It is most useful when combined with, for example, NASA and NOAA data and data from our other networks like the LTER, which is the Long-Term Ecological Research Network, or and in fact, actually the CZOs. And so that's where the mashups occur, and that's where we need probably the most help. And so some of these tool developers will begin working with on this issue. The iPlant project, which is headed out of University of Arizona. We've also begun discussions with Microsoft Research as well as ASRI. And we've been in touch with, very close touch with the Data One and Seed folks, the DataNet projects. And also, of course, Michael Dietz here, Pecan and Palion. And that's it. Thanks.